Matt Berner, you're taking a look at the Stronach 5 sequence for Friday, November the 16th. For those of you unfamiliar with the Stronach 5, it's a pick 5 sequence all across the Stronach family of racetracks, 12% takeout, $1 base bet. If the pool is not hit or if there are not multiple winning tickets, it carries over into the following Friday's Stronach 5 sequence. Let's kick things off. The first leg will be the 8th race at Laurel on Friday, 7/8 of a mile on the main track, an optional claimer. As has been the case with these videos, I don't give out tickets. I'm just going to throw out some horses that I find intriguing. Consider them, don't consider them. That's your prerogative. You as the handicapper can go through and decipher good from bad. I'm very interested and always have been with a horse in this race, and this would probably be a horse that I would stand heavily on. The number 3, that would be Grand for Dale Capuano. This is a horse that went up to Saratoga and ran the hopeful 3 starts back. I have always felt like this horse wants more distance. Well, they stretched him out at Delaware in each of the past 2, and the first time on a wet fast track, thought he ran just fine, all things considered. A little bit of a rallying third-place finish, and then most recently showed some speed and faded at the end. Now this turn back in distance, I think this is going to hit him right between the eyes, especially, again, showing that early speed now on the turn back. I think he's going to be more mid-pack. I think the number 3, that would be Grand, is definitely a player in here. If you're looking for some alternatives, I think the outside runner, the 12, Regally Irish for Grand Motion, first-time blinkers, also a turn back in distance is one that you need to consider. And then also, I think the 6 horse is a little bit interesting in here. That's Beyond the Victory. You'll note that all 3 of these horses are coming out of the common race at Delaware Park, but highest last out buyer in the field with his 68, that sort of rallying second place finish to be beaten by 3/4 of a length first time against winners from Mike Trombetta. That's the number 6, Beyond the Victory. But I've always been a fan of That Would Be Grand. So that's where most of my eggs would go in leg A of the Stronach 5 on Friday. We go on to leg B, the 8th race at Gulfstream Park West, 5.5 furlongs, $35,000 maiden claimers. I'd probably go 3 deep in here, the 1, the 2, and the 9. The 1 is Bullgratz. This is a horse dropping from the maiden special weight ranks into the maiden claiming ranks. Haven't seen this one since April, so been gone for a long time, has been gelded in the meantime, has a race 2 starts back. If this horse runs that race, probably going to win. Really, no questions asked. The question is, what are you going to get off such a long layoff? The 2, Just Bustin'. Haven't seen this horse since March, but this is one of those, I think, sneaky kind of moves. This horse was up in New York way back then, and I realize that's not when the good horses are in New York. They're still down in Florida. But at this level, I think shipping down from New York into South Florida, I think this one could easily fit in here very nicely for Larry Pilati. It'll be interesting to see where this one's positioned. Speed generally does very well on the main track at Gulfstream Park West, as is the case really with main Gulfstream too, but we're dealing with GPW right now. Speed usually does pretty well. I think Just Bustin' can be forwardly placed. The other horse, again, that I'm going to be considering anyway is the number 9, breaking from the outside for Ralph J. Catanese, Supery Dupery. This is a horse that is by Stratford Hill out of a Seeking the Gold mare that was stakes placed. This one, Supery Dupery, is a half-2 party time, who was 1 for 4 as a 2-year-old. So there is a little bit of precociousness. I recognize this is a late blooming and late starting 3-year-old, but the idea is there's at least been some history of some early returns where when the horses first show up to the racetrack, they can usually run a little bit. That would be one that I would also consider here in leg B, the 8th race at Gulfstream West. Now we go on to leg C, the 3rd race of the sequence, race number 9 back at Laurel. Non-winners of 2 in a year, $5,000 claimers. I would put most of my eggs into the 3s basket. That's Mythos. And the reason, not only because of the highest last out buyer in the field, not only because this one actually likes to win races, but this is a reclaim for Richard Silliman as well as the ownership group, Winning Way Stable. Just go back to that run at Laurel on August the 4th. They had the horse taken from them. Takes a little while. They come back. They reclaim this horse back in October. I think this horse fits in here very, very well. That's where most of my eggs would go. If you're looking for some alternatives, how about the 8 and the 9? I think the 8 is interesting. That's Palladian. I suppose I could use this one a little bit more. The interesting thing about this horse, from a buyer standpoint, doesn't really stack up, but from a time form standpoint, a raw time form standpoint, most recent run, highest last out number in the field with a 95, and then also the number 9 horse, Rumblin' Kyle. Rumblin' Kyle may not be a prolific winner. Look, 7 for 40 is nothing to sneeze at, but 17 times second or third, you get the 5-pound bug aboard. I just think there's some positive things to like about the number 9 Rumblin' Kyle. Those would be the 3 horses I would be most interested in leg C. We move on to leg D. Hopefully we're all still alive. It's the 9th race at Gulfstream Park West, 7.5 furlongs, maiden $20,000 claimer on the turf. This is one to me where you'd probably want to spread a little bit. 4 horses I'm most interested in, but 3 of them I would probably put slightly ahead of that 4th one. The 2, the 3, and the 5. Those are the horses that I'm most interested in. The 2 is Narrows Bridge, goes out for Wesley Ward, drops into the $20,000 level. Showed some speed in that most recent start. That was the first time dropping in for a maiden tag. That was at Ellis Park back in August. Showed some speed, couldn't quite stick around. There are multiple turf-winning siblings from this family, so Narrows Bridge I think makes a lot of sense in here. The 3 Subtle Hope is the one that I'm most fascinated with, and if I really needed to put some sort of a ticket together, and again, maybe it's a little bit more of an aggressive play, but I would probably put most of my eggs in this one's basket, hoping that this one actually turns out as well as what the pedigree would suggest at this point. Dialed In Sneaky has been very good with the turf runners, particularly the first-time turf runners, about 16%. This one is a half to 2 turf winners as well. Goes out for Lily Kurtenitz, who has had some success with some bigger prices popping at first asking in the past. Subtle Hope, I'm very interested in this horse. The 5 is Rushia Mora. Patio Prado, unfortunately, I believe is now passed away, but 10% with his first-time turf runners. This one is a half to Scout's Honor, who is 3 for 11, 8 times in the money on grass. So you have some nice turf pedigree there. And then also the one that, look, if I had to use them all, I would. Use them all. Use the 4 horses that I'm going to discuss. But I would slightly downgrade Bright Side of the Road. And maybe that would be a foolish mistake because each of these past 2 races, the first 2 tries on turf, it's been relatively close to the hot pace, paid the price late. You had that sort of middle move 2 starts back, and then most recently was just up there the whole time. But you get Paco aboard, and I kind of feel like we're at a point right now down at Gulfstream West that if Paco's aboard, you have to take the horse seriously. This would be the one that I would sort of use as defensively as opposed to the other 3 that I made mention. But look, if you've got the means, take a shot. I think Bright Side of the Road is a horse that'll be bet, and I think is a legitimate contender in this race. I don't love the horse, but I think she can certainly win. And then we get, finally, to the payoff leg of this thing. We go out to the West Coast. We go out to Northern California. We go out to the 4th race at Golden Gate Fields, 5.5 furlong starter allowance on the synthetic. I would key in on 4 horses here. The 3, King Eddie. The 4, It Makes Sense. And then the 8 and the 9. The 8 is Sound Logic. The 9 is On Trust. The 3, King Eddie, most recently broke through the N2L ranks. That was in a 5.5 furlong race here on the synthetic. You'll note that the 3 races on synth never been out of the exacta. One of those a victory. Highest last out buyer in the field with the 72. The 4, It Makes Sense. First time going out for John Martin, trying the synth for the first time. No guarantee that this one will be able to take to it, but it does get Lasix. And those first 2 starts, I know it's Los Alamitos, but from a buyer standpoint, those first 2 starts would suggest that this one can certainly fit in amongst this group. The 8, Sound Logic, goes out for Billy Morey, most recently broke through the maiden ranks. 69 buyer puts this one just on the cusp of having one of those figures that really looks like it's going to be good enough to get the job done here. Both of the synthetic tries, easily the best races of this one's career. I think Sound Logic is very, very interesting. And then number 9, On Trust. On Trust goes out for Blaine Wright. Broke through the maiden ranks most recently. That was back in March. So we're coming off of a little bit of a layoff, but Wright usually does some good work with these types. Co-highest last out buyer in the field with the 72. I'd be using all 4 of them in equal weight in this Friday's Stronach 5. Again, if you're unfamiliar with it, it's a pick 5, all the Stronach family race tracks, 12% takeout, $1 base bet, scheduled post time for Friday, November the 16th, Stronach 5. We kick things off. Leg A is the 8th race at Laurel Park. Scheduled post time is 4:19 Eastern. Good luck.